It's hard for me not to contrast what we're hearing about Myles and not meeting with the owner with what we see with Max Crosby in Vegas, who's another one of the best pass rushers in the NFL, who just signed an early extension. That's another team that hasn't actually, hasn't had a ton of success at the quarterback position as of late, but they have made it very clear that Crosby is a part of this franchise moving forward. He's the face of the team. He is very involved, it feels like, in their decision-making process. And I completely agree with Bill. If I'm Myles Garrett, it's hard not to look at the choices that the team has made over the last few years at the most important position in football and not have skepticism about their path going forward. That said, it's also not hard to see why the Browns don't want to do this. It's not just because Myles Garrett is a generational player, future Hall of Famer, arguably the best defensive player in the NFL. You don't want to move on from players like that, even if you're rebuilding. Yeah. They would also be taking a sizable cap hit if they traded him, particularly if they trade him ahead of this draft. He's counting $36 million against the cap. I believe it's a $16 million hit. And there's questions about how big of a package they would get. Jeremy could probably speak to this better than I, but I haven't heard reports or rumors that a Khalil Mack-style trade with multiple firsts is on the table or being rumored about. So if I'm the Browns, I'm wondering, well, why would we do this unless the player's actually going to hold out?
Yeah, I mean, what's wild here is that the Cleveland Browns have no problems paying Myles Garrett, right? Like, that's not a money issue. He just wants out. As was told to me, he looks at this as like a Ferrari in a used parking lot a little bit. Like, he just feels like he needs to go where he's on a contender and they're not going to be close. I actually think the Browns will be, sneaky good next year potentially, but not at the level of some of these other teams that we're looking at. So that's the issue. They're willing to pay him, but this pass rush market is probably going to be at $40 million a year before we know it. That's the problem.
Point. We've told this story before, but having him on Monday Night Football toward the latter part of the season last year, he told us he had met with ownership. He was trying to figure out what their plans were for the future so he could feel better about his future with the team. He didn't get the answers that he wanted.